Okay, on three and then clap. 1, 2, 3.
Oh! Okay. All right.
You guys, welcome back to an all-new episode of So Bad It's Good. Now, listen, this is a continuation of a conversation that happened on Friday. It was released on Saturday on another person's podcast, and I know all of you guys loved it. If you didn't, I'm going to have you go listen to that now because it's fantastic. And listen, you would say, can lightning strike twice? And if you're Tom Sandoval, you're like, yes, it can, dude. Lightning is crazy that way, man. We're all lightning bolts. But her podcast is called Andy's Girls. Now, what's really important about not only her podcast, which you should go listen to right now, but I've got something exciting to tell you about. And that's why you're hearing this today, Wednesday, is because she has a live show this Thursday, May 18th at 7 p.m. in the old Big Apple, the old New York City, where the Summer House kids live during the week, supposedly. It's at the Green Room 42. And now you're like, Ryan, I don't live in New York. That's fine because it's going to be live streamed as well. You can find all that information in the show notes, but you can also find it on my Instagram stories. Now you're like, well, listen, why would I need to go out and see Sarah if I can listen to her on this show? And I'd be like, well, that's a really mean thing to say. First off, Sarah Galli's an amazing live performer. She grew up in the theater. She's done a handful of these live shows. They've always been amazing, but she has an amazing guest. Now, you guys know I love Dylan Hafer. He is the host of the Mention It All podcast, and he is just second to none in terms of wit. Just so funny, so brilliant. And these two together are going to be amazing. Yes, there probably will be some surprises, but these two alone, you're going to want to see it live because it's going to talk all about Vanderpump Rules. And you'd be like, Ryan, I've heard so much about it, but like, come on, you want to hear more. And especially in that live environment, wouldn't you rather support these two people than Tom Sandoval and the Most Extras? It's a community of people. Even if you don't like the performers on stage like Tom Sandoval, you go because it's community. It's all of these Bravo fans together. You're going to make friends. It's going to be what they like to call a vibe. Sometimes that word is used way too much, especially by Raquel in these last few episodes, but it will be a vibe. That is promised to you. But today she is back for part 2 of a conversation we started over on her podcast. Like I said, it is Andy's Girls. And here it is, the one, the only Sarah Galli. Sarah, welcome back.
Well, I can just go now. My God.
Yeah, by the way, you got your commercial. Guess you can go now.
I will see myself out. Ryan Bailey, such a pleasure. Words are hard.
If you want to go see her pronounce things correctly. By the way, we're so loopy, you guys, because we've only talked Vanderpump Rules for the last couple of months, and it's no signs of stopping or slowing down in any way because we talked Friday and so many things happened in just this last 4 days. And, we've got 5 more episodes to go. This Wednesday is the season finale, which you guys will be talking about, I'm assuming, nonstop at this live show. I mean, the sad thing is, even with this finale, it's not a finale because we got 4 more episodes after that with the reunion and the never before seen.
I mean, I was literally just counting on my hand where the 5 was coming from. You're totally right. Can you still see me, by the way? My computer just went black.
Yeah, I can totally see you.
I don't know what just happened. It is going to be a journey. We're calling it Andy's Girls Live, a Sandoval Spritz. And I do feel like there's so much for us to discuss. I mean, Dylan runs Bravo by Betches, and the post that he's just putting up, I'm laughing my ass off, but it's also like kind of insane. I'm a little nervous for how this finale is going to go. Like, I feel a little nervous. How are you feeling? I constantly feel like I need to go to the bathroom, so I'm feeling that, but I'm so collected. But the funny thing is, you're listening to this today, you guys. Tonight is the finale. This is what sports fans feel like, I assume. So it is really exciting and it's scary because last night, I don't know if this was a leak or this was I think it was official because it looked really nice. On TikTok, they released a minute-long clip of the season finale. And remember, they had took a break from filming. They ended the season. It wasn't a break. They ended the season, picked cameras up after the Tom Sandoval show where his phone fell out of his pocket. And we see this minute-long clip with Ariana talking to Sheena and Katie Maloney and 2 of her best friends, Logan and Brad, right next to her. And she explains
what happened that, she found this, video of him and Raquel touching their private parts. And then reveals that he was at Schwartz's doing this. And then she pushed him on it and said it happened at guys' night after Charlotte had died, her dog. And then she said, just made out. And then she pushed Tom on it. And Tom said they actually had sex in a car in the driveway and he lost his keys and couldn't get back in. Sarah, I need all of your thoughts on that clip. That's monumental.
Well, I don't know why I'm so focused on this, but my initial reaction, aside from shock and horror, was I wonder if someone's going to send this to Howie Mandel, because when Sandoval went on Howie's show, he was adamant about the fact that they had this like beautiful kiss watching the sunset, and then, voice trails off, nothing else happened. Let's pretend Howie thinks that this whole kerfuffle is just about a kiss alone, ... We did other stuff too. Like, it's just so fascinating to watch what Sandoval surely knew was going to be aired on the show and the ways he's tried to troubleshoot it in advance, because I don't know if he thought about this at all. I don't think thinking is in the top 3 things Sandoval likes to do, but aside from, of course, thinking about himself, in which he is absolutely great, but like, was he thinking, if I get another lie out there, it will distract them from what could be the truth then said on an upcoming ep? Like, does he not recognize?
I totally agree with you, but also in this call, I say this like weekly on the show, is that even like by saying that on the Howie Mandel show, 30% of those people will always believe him. Like, it's just throwing out distraction. It's throwing out other information, and who knows if they're going to act, like it's some people will still believe Sandoval's side of the story. Now, you most recently, you had Howie Mandel's daughter on, who was Howie Mandel's co-host on the podcast. And it was frustrating because she actually is a fan of Vanderpump Rules and had a list of questions that she had to kind of throw out because he said, like, listen, we're not pushing back on this. It's in an agreement. We're going to let him tell his story. What was her vibe talking to her after seeing all of this kind of come out and explode?
Well, I think she was perhaps the only one aware in that whole group, like Howie's team, which there's an intersection there between Howie's team and Tom's team, essentially.
Yeah, Jason Bader, the drummer, is married to somebody that works for Howie Mandel.
Right. But Jackie was the only one seemingly who was aware of how bad this could potentially go. So the night before the interview, she prepared pages of questions to ask Sandoval, and then showed up and was essentially told there's going to be no counter, there's going to be no pushback, which who knows who that came from. I mean, obviously there was a very specific reason Sandoval wanted to speak to Howie. I think the lack of understanding and information was obviously a huge benefit to Tom in his mind. But I did also think it was such a missed opportunity from whomever is running strategic comms for Monsieur Sandoval over there to not even allow Jackie or potentially Howie to counter anything he said. Now, that being said, something that Jackie said on Andy's Girls when she was on recently was like, for better or worse, I would argue worse, what Sandoval showed of himself by essentially monologuing for 80 minutes was in fact very revealing, not necessarily in the way
by default. Well,
right.
Even the point of is like, if Jackie could have asked questions, their goal to make Sandoval look good, it still failed. Even with being able to share this unedited story of potential, like 2/3 are truth, 1/3 is lies, it didn't help him at all. In fact, it didn't help Tom, and it also made Howie look bad, which is, do you think Howie will be in season 11 of Vanderpump? Do you think he's angling? Because now he really wants a piece of the Vanderpump economy. Now he's like out there like, Lala, will you talk to me? Who's Sheena? I'm loving getting to know who Sheena is.
Well, he and Lala now are like very friendly, and there's currently, although it doesn't make sense because there are still existing VPR cast members who are going on pods, but other members of the cast have said that they're not allowed to do so. So hopefully when restrictions are lifted, which I think was next week, Lala will go on Howie's podcast because she said essentially, I'm going to school you. And he was like, okay, let's go to school. I think it could be.
He loves it because it was one of his highest like downloaded pods. I mean, like, listen, I wanted to talk to you about the Vanderpump economy of like, not only, like just us, the podcasters and meme makers, it's helped us, sure, because it's given us great content to dig into, but also the cast members themselves. I mean, such a resurgence in everybody caring, all eyes on them. And in fact, a great point to your point is that some of the Vanderpump cast members, are like, they're being kind of told, don't do podcasts. You can do your own, but really try to be wary of what you're doing out there. At the beginning of this season, you guys, and this is how little Bravo, they were really pushing to make this a good season, but they had also gave it a low episode count order. The last 2 seasons had fallen in the ratings. So this time, usually you have to kind of jump through Bravo PR hoops. Like, if I talk to a housewife or I talk to somebody on Summer House, it has to go through Bravo PR. Bravo PR, like I had Sheena on right before Scandal broke. I didn't have to go through anybody. I had Ariana and Tom on my moment, like the week of the premiere. Didn't have to go through Bravo. Bravo, like, was kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever attention is good. And you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. I mean, isn't that wild? And now they're having to kind of clamp down a little bit. But at the same time, I think this shows to Bravo is like, any talk is good talk at this point. It's better for us to be talking about it.
So I have a question for you based on the idea of the Vanderpump economy, but specific to content creation and podcasting, thinking about the situation Jackie found herself in of like, there was this booking, it was, obviously a huge get. And then she finds out she can't respond to anything that he's saying with like significant counters. How would you have handled that? First off, if Tom came to you and approached you and said, listen, I'd really like to come on the pod. I'd like to talk to you. What would your reaction be? And then also, if there were restrictions put on it, seemingly specifically, strategically, right before you were about to record, how would you react to that?
So, I mean, at my not lowly place, I mean, this show does really well now, but it's still like, I want it to do better. So of course, there is this natural give and take with anybody I have on, including you, Sarah. Like if you wanted me to take something out, I would out of respect for you. But I usually try to have a conversation of like, what should I stay away from beforehand? Yeah. And like, when I deal with PR reps and like Sandra or like, people can tell you like, they'll have like, hey, try not to talk about the Lindsay Danielle relationship too much. Try not. Or sometimes I talked to Corey Kiefer a couple weeks ago and they had me cut out the part that he was going to be at the reunion because it wasn't announced yet. And it was a small moment, but I was like, oh, dang. But I did it, of course, because I want to respect their wishes. Right. But with the Sandoval thing, now I wouldn't interview him at this point. Like I just wouldn't. Just because I knew him a little personally, I wouldn't feel right about that. But with the Howie thing, that was the thing that kind of bothered me just as a fellow podcaster of like, don't just give away your platform. If you're going to like, you gotta agree on those moments of pushback. You got to say, hey, Tom, I was thinking about it. I think we can help you more if I push back on a couple of these key moments, just so I can get your like, just to get you to talk a little bit more about this. I think in the end, it's going to help you. And if we do it and you don't like it, let's then consider maybe editing from that, but let's really get it out, because other than that, you start to get made fun of for a way you don't want to be made fun of as a podcaster. Because then now the joke is Howie Mandel. You're like, listen, if you're a serial killer, go on Howie's. He'll like give you the like. Listen, we all have rage in our heads, right? I've been there. You're a guy. You need to kill. Sarah, how would you have handled it?
Well, I mean, I think you made so many great points. And the thing that was kind of staggering to me, aside from the lack of counter and now understanding the specifics of why that didn't take place, but Howie seemed to take a lot of pride in not understanding what happened, which was interesting to me. Like, why not have a one sheet that just says, like, this is what a Sheena is.
Right there.
Like,
your daughter's right there.
Your daughter's seen every episode. She could do this in 30. You ask any Bravo-holic to what's a one sheet on whatever. We have already pre-written that in our heads. Like, just have a little explainer of, like, this is what we understand happened, because there were so many ways that Tom was able to manipulate the sharing of information in being as unclear as humanly possible, which Howie then compounded and minimized. So it was like, if we couldn't have a counter, couldn't we know what actually took place? Like, just to understand it, that would have been really helpful.
Pride in your actual job of like, I had a great conversation. Like Howie went in there, and I know I love talking about this because Howie really did this phenomenal thing where he went in there and goes, I understand human behavior. I don't need to watch any show. And I just think that is such a weird place to come. Like, listen, the only people I would do that for is like, maybe, I don't know, like who I'm trying to think of, like, I would be interested in a conversation with like a scientist or somebody that, like somebody that has a real different understanding about human behavior, a therapist maybe, or something. But like Howie Mandel is not the person of like, yeah, Howie can raw dog this interview and it could still be great. Like, where would that, and also, do you think it's an ego thing or do you think it's a male thing? That could also be the same thing of Howie's the same kind of way as Tom of like, dude, it's like, okay, I'll tell you why this interview wasn't bad. Like, they keep defending the actual mistake. Like Tom is defending his behavior with Ariana. I don't understand that.
I mean, I don't know that I would compare the two, but what I would say is I think Howie's ultimate like thesis or question was, I don't understand why any of this is a big deal. And he said that without knowing what any of this meant. He literally didn't know the definition of what this actually was. But I also thought to myself, like, okay, they're referencing the fact that all of these media outlets are covering these things. I don't think he read any of those articles. I was very much stuck in the, like, some of this you could have answered for yourself, but I think no one wanted him to, maybe including Howie, so he could stick with the, like, listen, I've met you in real life. We met at a wedding. You were really friendly. And that's the kind of person that's the person that I believe you are, and the only person that I will accept. And that became, I think, that was like the barrier for them, is his refusal to understand not only what took place, but very specific reasons specific to Sandoval's character of why people are so upset.
The only thing I took pride in, though, is that, him going like, I don't know why this is such a big thing. I took pride because I was like, yes, us Bravo fans, there is legitimacy here. What you talk about on your show every week, there are deeper implications here. We can look into the mind of people and try to see human behavior. And that's something that I'm proud that it has broken through that just Bravo Bravo fanatic bubble. And it is on to general pop culture and the world. Like, so hell yeah, we've been here the whole time saying that these shows, you need to have eyes on them because it actually provides answers to human behavior in general. So I don't even find it like, I don't see what the big deal is. I see exactly what the big deal is. And I'm glad that everybody's here now.
Well, and there's also a currency to it. I mean, being a Bravoholic at this point brings with it an enormous amount of value, because we are able to say, oh, in season 6, yada, yada, and something happened in 2, like the wealth of information that layers all of this for many of us, because we have an understanding of at least the history that we've seen on TV is really important. But also, you were talking a little bit about like the different ways that people can receive information. And I found that really interesting because we talked about this on Part 1 on Andy's Girls, but I went to Sandoval's New York City concert this week.
You wrote an article about it for the Daily Beast, right?
Yeah, I did. I covered it for the Daily Beast. And it was just so interesting to me, the reactions that I got from people, including people who were like, I was there, it was great. So you talking about people yelling out Ariana and send it to Daryl and whatever else didn't happen. Like, there is there's conflicting. Oh yeah, no, people said to me, it's fake news. Everybody there had a great time. Literally every single person there had a great time. It is impossible that you could not have experienced essentially the bliss that is Tom Sandoval on a stage. Which was the message signed?
The message was signed Shmom Shmanabal.
I mean, but it was like, it is possible for people to have different opinions, surely, and different experiences attached to the VPR currency, including going to people's live shows or buying merch or whatever else. And it's also possible, this is the hardest thing, I think, for some Bravo fans, to accept that one person's reality might be different from another's, and it doesn't negate the reality of them having that experience. Like, what I was looking for in writing that piece was all different kinds of fans there, people who were there specifically because of the Scandoval, people who bought tickets prior to the Scandoval, people who were there who, regardless of when they bought tickets, wanted to actively support Tom. Like, that to me is an interesting story, not just people who were going to boot, which did LOL also absolutely happen repeatedly through the course of the concert. And so it's like understanding the levels is interesting to me, the nuance.
We were talking a little bit about it too on that episode, about it kind of being this Rocky Horror Picture Show thing where everybody's like, you know, where he's like, Raquel is not for me, Schwartzy's mom. Everybody's like, yeah. And it's kind of this, like, you know, you gone to these events where you scream out on screen when this certain moment happens. And there's that element to look at. But then, like, when we saw that clip last night of what we're going to see tonight, where Ariana's given us the gritty details about the lies and banging. And for like, this dude cheated in front of their house the day after she had to put her dog down. At what point is it weird that we are supporting this man, even as silly, or even if we're going to flip him off and scream? Is it kind of get to a dark place? Or that's because by the way, once I talked to you on Friday and I was talking about this, I talked to two of the girls that had held signs up that said Poo Poo Head and Team Ariana. Right. And it was really fun because it was like you know, you guys both got me thinking a little bit more openly of like, okay, I could see where it really is that kind of, you know, you're going to meet Bravo fans. It's going to be great. And then I watched that clip last night and I was like, wait, why are we keeping this dude's like shitty cover band dream alive? And I don't mean the band itself. The band itself is good. In fact, I read this one review, I think it was on Medium, where the lady goes, listen, this band actually has a real good chance of being a real good cover band if they drop Tom. And I thought that was the darkest statement ever. But I mean, at what point, when you hear these details, why are we making his dream come true? And I think that's the question I keep asking about myself, and some people are like, you're taking it too seriously or da-da-da-da. But I'm like really asking that question. Would you go if you found out one of your really good friends was cheating and lying for like a year maybe? Would you go then and support their artistic endeavor when you found out these gritty details?
Well, that's the tension here. And I spoke to someone who was holding up images, who got to the front near the stage. And there were a couple hundred people at the stage. I was sitting in the back in like the actual seats, which was pretty sparse, but like there were a ton of people by the stage cheering, dancing, whatever else through the course of the performance. And there was one person that I talked to who had pre-saved on her phone a Team Ariana banner, a picture of Ariana's reported new man, a picture of Ariana in her revenge dress. And her sole purpose in going to the show was going and holding her phone up to Tom's eye line so that he could see it. And I talked to her after the show, and she was really happy that she went and had a positive experience because she knew that he could see these images. And it gets into the idea of like, okay, so in order to do that, you are buying a ticket, which does support Tom. But because people are being so vocal at these shows, it does chip away at Tom's I'm a superstar exterior because he's being booed and jeered. Like for some people, it has become a little bit of a tertiary, or not tertiary. There has been some kind of experience that has been positive for people in going and feeling like they are a spiritual representative of Team Ariana. And I don't have really any thoughts about, I mean, I had a media access. I was thinking to myself, like, if I have to buy this ticket, how am I going to feel about that in order to cover it? But I mean, it does get into this like interesting, tensiony, nuanced territory of what does it mean to support Ariana if you're buying a ticket for Tom? But I would say, like, the TLDR is he is obviously aware of how this is being received. And I do not know. Honestly, Ryan, I watched that clip, the clip that we're talking about of the dog and the fucking in the car and whatever. And I watched that clip and I was like, I don't know how he's going to be able to perform after the finale. It's going to be a much different, darker
Sarah,
energy.
I think there's a distortion reality field with him that I think it's not going to eat. I think there is this, like, he's divorced from reality. Like being on 10 years of a reality show has made his brain mush, where I think, you know, you see all of these, you see your life in these big reality show moments that it starts to actually, you lose a grip on reality. And if you have so many people blowing smoke up your ass that you actually start going like, well, fuck, you know, Jax did this all those years ago. Why is this such a big deal? And I don't think he stopped to think of how we're all unique snowflakes and individuals, how we're all like, how Jax can do one thing, but we actually expected that from Jax because he never showed us anything different. But with Sandoval, we actually kind of bought into him being this weirdly quirky, unique man that's like really respected his relationship and women as a whole. So when that actually happens, I think that is the thing that we keep coming back to. That's what makes it unique. If it was another season of just Jax cheating again, we would have been like, been there, done that. This is like Teresa and Joey fighting on Jersey. How many times are we going to see Teresa on Jersey fight with Joey? We would have been bored with it. But it was somebody that we kind of were like, had accepted that he was just this quirky dude that was passionate about art and loved his woman.
Yeah, and I think for Tom, I would assume that part of the difficulty is for Tom, and especially being surrounded potentially by Raquel cheering him on, that he's the perfect man or whatever else. And, you know, God only knows how many fans over the years just in telling him how beloved he is, that there is a little bit of a complex that you might develop / create. But what happens when you're at these shows because you understand that you're a superstar, performing songs that you specifically want to perform, not because they're close to being anywhere near your vocal register, but because you want to experience what that original artist experience, and then people are booing you? What does that do to someone who has chosen to exist in a very different kind of world?
And I love it. I love that thought, because I was even, and this is like, this shows you how deep we're thinking about this guys. Because I was thinking, because then I was like, well, listen, he's out there getting booed like tomatoes, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, well, wow, he's still out there sticking it out. And I for a second, I was like, well, that's pretty damn heroic. That's pretty damn, he's putting himself in the, and I was like, wait a sec, you idiot. He put himself there. We're going to champion him for going out and like doing the shows that he, like, no, it's still the same thing. At the end of the day, he still wants a little bit of that shine, a little bit of that ego stroke, which is what we were seeing in these final episodes. Like, dude, Ariana doesn't tell me I'm amazing every day. You know, like, well, you know, it's like 9 years in, and it just, we see how important that is. He keeps saying, I annoy her. She doesn't think I'm smart. She doesn't agree with me. And it's all of these things that are like equal, like she doesn't think I'm amazing as I know I am. And that's the dark thing, is that all of this to me is just ego stroking, no matter how you look at it.
Well, and also he wants to be divorced from reality when he's on stage, when he's doing this tour in which he has seemingly paid everyone. I don't even know if he could have gotten out of the tour. I don't know if there's a force majeure for cheating on your girlfriend of almost a decade. I did ask him that. He gave me a statement, which is included in the piece, and about how he's having a great time.
What's
like it's rad or something.
It's a fucking force majeure, dude. I don't speak French.
I mean, but like related to all of that is this question of, who does Tom actually think we think he is? And what happens if the overwhelming LOL that many people have felt for the Toms over the course of many years has curdled? Like, what do you do with that if you still want to behave in a similar manner that either you have for several years or that you've seen castmates for several years? Like, Tom, I do genuinely believe, thinks he's the victim of his own adultery. And I don't know how to get out of that. Like, out of that window, I think that's it.
That's what Ariana says at the end of the clip, you guys. You said, he admitted that to me, and then he yelled at me. He was mad at me, right. Ariana says. And that really is of like, how dare you ruin this cheating moment for me? Like, how dare you do this? But it's such a dark thought, but it really psychologically checks out. Of course he would yell at her. Of course he would be upset at her, because also Ariana said one of the first things that she did when she found out, she texted everybody, because she knew Sandoval was going to talk her into, don't reveal for a while. Let's keep it in-house. We've got brand deals, all of this stuff, because now it's kind of coming out more and more that Tom was hyper obsessed with how people viewed him and controlling somewhat of a narrative of being heroes. And that is why I think even Lala Kent had said at some point, you know, they don't really openly share like the rest of us do, which I never fully agreed with. But now looking at it from this standpoint, I'm like, okay, really for Tom, especially trying to control this narrative, that he was really trying to wait until after all of this was over and then break up with her.
Well, and also he was able to sort of be successful at evading accountability or the truth, because he could lean into the fact that any questions about their relationship were fake. Any questions or anyone saying like he's not behaving in a way that makes sense or something is off here, he could argue, and I'm sure successfully did, that this is just production. This is just the nature of being on a reality TV show, and people are going to try to break
Jax said that so many times.
On a relationship.
Jax used that so many times back in the day, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of Jax, Jax was most recently on Heather McDonald's podcast today. And, you know, I know they have a good relationship, and Heather's really great at bringing out things in her guests. And Jax, by the way, when Jax has the pulpit, when Jax, you know, he just flows. The thing with Jax, though, just from watching on the show, you've got to remember, you've got to really try to weigh what is true, what is false. You know, there's many truths and lies, and sometimes the same breath I found with watching Jax. Now, a lot of people have already messaged me and goes, I think he's really turned a corner. Wow. He admitted like he's grown up a lot in the last years. And I got to tell you, I walked away from that interview impressed. And I love comments like that, but I also just gently want to remind people that's the same shit he said every reunion of how he needs to grow up. He's a work in progress. And we all walked away going, you know what? He felt bad. He feels bad. He feels bad. So with the Jax thing, you know, and I want to also make this announcement here if you guys haven't put it together. DJ James Kennedy announced yesterday that on June 13th at See You Next Tuesday, DJ James Kennedy featuring Jax Taylor will be at Sexy Unique Restaurant on June 13th. Now, I want to also remind you that filming starts before June 13th. So, ladies and gentlemen, we do have Jax Taylor back on the cast of season 11 of Vanderpump Rules. Now, a lot of people already, you know, Jax has kind of said that to people, bumping in. He's like, yeah, I'm definitely back. But Jax lies a lot. So this was our first actual official confirmation that Jax Taylor is back. Now, the funny thing is, it's going to be with DJ James Kennedy at a bar. What do you think Jax Taylor, is he going to help DJ James Kennedy spin records? What do you think he's going to do at this event?
I mean, I assume he's just going to wave like Miss America. Like, what else could he do at a show in which there is no show for him to show? But for the confirmation part of it, does it not just indicate that he could be cameoing? I don't think that means he potentially has a role, unless you know something I do not, which is entirely possible.
I think Jax Taylor will be a friend of this season. And I think this is, they are going to, but he is going to have multiple appearances. And I do want to also throw it out there, just how these productions work, is that there's only a handful of season contracts that go out. They also, even the big people on this show, they still get day player rates. They're not signed to official people that would actually shock you. People that be like, wait, I thought that was a regular. But they try, like, remember, these productions keep their budgets tight, and they say, like, listen, I'll pay you for every day that you're here. And that's why you'll see some of these people, like, they get really good at getting in those storylines. So if Jax makes something happen, he might go from a friend of to a regular. Who knows? But my thought was like, do you think they're going to do some kind of song, like Poo-Poo Head song? And Jax is going to be like, Sandoval's a liar. Like it's going to be some kind of duet almost. Or like a Pump Teeny Cosmopolitan. Remember when DJ James Kennedy yelled that at Jax Taylor? Like this is a meeting of this is like hell has frozen over if they're together because of Sandoval.
I mean, I kind of thought Kristen might be back in a friend of role. I thought that made a lot of sense for next season. And obviously she's going to be on the finale because we all lost our minds at that teaser. But the teaser with her flip-flops. But
yeah, you Jax news. Would that have horrified you if you were on national television in Nike flip-flops? You love a good pair of pumps. Would you have worn flip-flops if you were going to be on TV?
I am an ally to Manolo Blahnik, but no, I love flip-flops. I wear flip-flops. I'm a native New Englander.
Wow, like Sarah not wanting to offend anybody. Sarah, no, I love flip-flops. No, all shoes. What a way to not pick a side. I love flip-flops.
No. I literally am only ever in like sweats or ball gown. Like I love flip-flops so much. I stand flip-flops. I've worn them so many times at deeply inappropriate moments where I should not be wearing flip-flops. So I have no problem with wearing flip-flops. I love a flip-flop.
By the way, I have a feeling Sarah's going to have flip-flops on as a guest next week. Hey, God, I had flip-flops. I couldn't talk shit about flip-flops. I had them coming on the podcast.
Shout out Javianas or whatever. But what do you think about Kristen coming back? I mean, what do you think about this whole Sandoval providing an opportunity for OGs to return? Are you into it? Like, what's your energy about all of it?
It depends on how it's like treated. Like, I think they're already back in the sense that they're able to have brand deals again. Their social media is good. They're all able to have podcasts. So they're finally, the spigot has been turned on to make some money off of this again, because they've gone through a long, cold winter of not being able to over the last couple of years. And, that's the unfortunate thing I think about reality stars. I think about this with Bachelor contestants all the time, is like, damn, they're fucked in 10 years. Like long-term, how are you guys? Like even Andy was talking about today of like, save your money. I always tell people to save your money, Andy Cohen. And like these people I do worry about, because it's like, okay, how good is Doute's t-shirt line doing? Is it good? Like, of course they're going to want to come back, but also we have to realize what created this whole scandal is the current cast. They didn't need Stassi. They didn't need Jax. They didn't need Doute. Mm-hmm. Now, these are great additions. I will be so excited to see Doute tonight. I was so excited. But do we need it? It's a great addition too, but it's not needed. And I want to try to get away from these kind of the show needs this, the show needs that. We saw that the show can do good with the current cast. If they can find a way to use Jax properly, and I'll be very excited to see him at DJ James Kennedy's DJ night, because that's half awesome and half cringe. And that's where I love things that are like embarrassing. And like, it's so cringe to have Jax be pals with DJ James. Yeah, I mean, it's like that moment that's kind of perfect. But I don't know. Do you want all of these people coming in after this current season didn't have them?
I just think that Kristen makes so much sense. And I also think she has been very quick to rebut any comparison between what happened with like her and Jax versus what's going on now. She's gotten very upset at people making that comparison, because not only is it not apples to apples, but you're forgetting about Raquel. So I think it's helpful for the storyline moving forward to see the way that Kristen and Ariana have become close. The fact that Ariana asked her to film is a pretty good indicator of where their relationship is now. And I also am not against someone being there specifically to fuck with Tom. And Kristen, to me, would do a better job of it than Jax, because I think Jax is like, his energy is almost high strung in wanting to be back in front of the cameras and in trying to like prove that he has information and emotion there. And I just think it's like, it's a lot. It's like giving me like puppy, and it's a lot. Also, it's a lot of young dogs.
I always use that concept of, Jax is just not a reliable narrator. At the end of the day, Jax is still one of the boys. You can only grow up so much. You're still, by the way, you're telling me if next season he's on and Schwartz is like, has a girlfriend and he's cheating on that girlfriend, Jax is going to protect his boy. He's still going to protect, he's still going to be in that kind of man culture, that bro culture that this show has rallied against this season. And also the other thing with Jax that I keep talking about, it's like, really think this through, Jax. Really think this through, Brittany, because this show brought out the worst in Jax. If you have this beautiful family, and it does seem like they have a beautiful family, why even tempt fate just for a couple $100,000? Like, why tempt fate when you have this nice thing set up? You could have this beautiful life, you do have a beautiful life.
You can't just like swing by a couple $100,000 as if that's not a huge amount of money. And also, if he made his money off of Vanderpump Rules and then he's no longer on Vanderpump Rules, they have that big house to pay for. He's got a kid now. Like, I don't know how they're sustaining an income for the level of like, for the lifestyle that they were living before. I mean, that's
Jenny
the
Craig.
Whole thing
It's Brittany's bringing in the Jenny Craig money, which actually Jenny Craig just went out of business. So
did it? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't know how much that's bringing, but it's like the Kim and Croy of like, he's no longer a football star. You're no longer a Real Housewife, but you're living life at a certain level.
But Sarah, at some point you do have to plan for the future. And it's like, and I will say, if we just judge by 10 seasons of this magnificent reality show, this shows us that unfortunately there will be more temptation for somebody like Jax or another male on this show that has a relationship. And I don't want to speak to anything that he's doing off camera, but I just think you have more of a tendency for bad things to happen. And especially when you enjoy the spotlight, you can tell that Jax is getting off of this. And the other thing you have to worry about too is that, okay, Jax has all of this information. He was spilling on Heather McDonald. I didn't get to listen to it, but people were sending me notes. And, he was even talking about like, he thinks he potentially hooked up with Billy Lee back in the day that Sandoval did.
Sandoval did?
He thinks that Sandoval did. He was throwing out all of these things, and it's like, okay, just remember, that's fine to throw out this information, but you will open yourself up to similar lines of questioning and suspicion, because I could see easily if Sandoval gets, like Jax gets in Sandoval's face, Sandoval's going, dude, I was with you in Miami before the reality show. Remember when you were taken care of by Miami guy, Jax? Remember those? I was literally at a party where this was being done to you by this other gentleman. He will leave himself open for his past to be reinvestigated. And I think it's a real slippery slope in all of this reveals. And especially, it's Jax. And that's the thing, is that Jax is not a reliable narrator. I just think it's a really tough thing going into season 11. What could possibly happen to everybody involved? Am I crazy for thinking that?
No, I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. And at the end of the day, it's like ... it's Jax. And I think that's why I'm like, okay, I got it. And listen, we are in the Sandoval era. I'm going to watch and listen to literally everything. I cannot get enough of talking about this. If you had told me at the beginning of VPR this season that I would be talking and deep diving about VPR through the lens of psychology, which is the sort of mission statement of Andy's Girls, as much as I have been, I would be like, what are you talking about? And yet here we are. So if he has something to say. I
wanted to bring that up to you, because you are one of the foremost people that really does talk about the, goings on, emotionally and psychologically with the women, the housewives. And, you were telling me before, it's like, you were thinking potentially even watching this season of Vanderpump Rules. You're like, like that was actually, and by the way, you weren't the only one. So what is it like? Was it, what was the moment that got you so fired up for you personally?
Well, last season I heard was a mess. So I only watched the reunion and I was like, this is a mess. And then this season started, and choosing, because there's so much content that comes out of Housewives, which is typically the main focus of Andy's Girls, I don't dig in a lot into Summer House. I haven't typically dug in a lot on VPR. So choosing between the two, essentially, of like, what of the two do I have capacity for, even just to watch as a Bravoholic, I thought it would be Summer House. And I watched the first 2 episodes and was like, okay, I'm done. And then the scandal happened and I was like, holy shit. And the thing that was a different experience for me versus people who were watching the season is I then had like a weekend to catch up. So I hadn't watched the first couple episodes of this season before the word got out. So I was watching the first couple episodes, and I've seen every other season aside from last season. It was a different experience, because in my head, I'm like, oh my God, I'm thinking I'm seeing Easter eggs everywhere. And I think it's
because you already had that information.
Right.
You already, and like for me, watching it day and date, if you listen to the beginning episodes of me recapping the show, I was like, oh, Raquel, what a season for her to finally find her voice, literally and figuratively, like maybe she can get it on one voice. And like Sandoval with his band, I was really in such strong support of them. And I was like, wow, the mean girl behavior is off the charts with Lala. And then when this dumps out, you could go back and look at all these Easter eggs and look at it from a whole different angle, which is kind of this really interesting almost like VR type way of watching this show, of you're watching it now from a completely different angle. And it's just so interesting. And we've never really truly had a reality show that has done that. And people have caught up to it and then gone back and watched all of these kind of context clues.
Meanwhile, Lala has said a couple times that she feels like had the scandal not happened, that Raquel would be coming out of this the champion, that it would be like everybody would be on team Raquel by the end. And I don't agree with that necessarily. Do you? That's the thing, is I could understand why she was saying that, but the finale, the OG finale, the most recent episode that we had seen until this like new content, with Taylor, I was so angry. I was like yelling at the screen. I was so disturbed by Raquel's behavior, by Sandoval's behavior, by the fact that they obviously coordinated for this to happen on Ariana's night. Like everyone had such little respect for, or many people had such little respect for Ariana, that even if the affair hadn't happened, and who knows how the affair affected Raquel's interest in defending Schwartz, like we'll never have any idea about that. But if she still would have behaved the same and the affair hadn't happened or we hadn't found out, I would have a lot of negative feelings about Raquel. So I don't know who would have come out of
that. No, exactly. That, you know, each episode had changed. Like, you know, when that Las Vegas episode, I was like, wow, Raquel, I am so team Raquel. Like if that scandal hadn't have happened, it would have been Raquel all day. But by the end, she was actually kind of turning into a monster, even regardless of Sandoval. Like who talks to a mother that way? I mean, even if a mother was like being a jerk, and Terry Maloney definitely wasn't, you just don't talk to mothers that way. And I know that might sound like, you know, patriarchal or this kind of bullshit of like old fashioned, but no, you just don't. You've got to respect mothers, period. Like, you know, go bitch about them off camera, away from them if you want to, but never. Who does that?
Well, I mean, it's just respect for a person's family. Like to punish her mom by being so belittling and honestly dickish. Like she was so rude to sweet angel Terry Maloney, who I did, as I told you before the show, I said happy Mother's Day to my mother, Toby Galli, who absolutely isn't listening. She doesn't know what a podcast is. And Terry Maloney, who I have obviously never spoken to in my life, but I slid into her DMs and said, I hope you have a great day, Terry.
And then Sarah was like, what are you wearing, Terry? I'm in flip-flops.
No,
slid into the DMs. Yeah. No, Terry Maloney raised me. My mom and Terry Maloney are the two women that have raised me. No, I mean, also then speaking about Terry Maloney, though, to bring it to Katie, the way we would have viewed this season through Katie's eyes, it's like we still do get to see it from Katie's eyes and kind of see what she had been talking about for many seasons with Schwartz's behavior. And I think I would be curious to talk to Katie in just the sense of, and I know the answer is like, no, there's probably no feeling, but like, Katie definitely has been celebrated this season, but I sometimes wonder if, you know, like the Ariana of it all, like took so, like really just came through. And I know we are still appreciating Katie and what she's gone through, but I wonder if there's a sense of, man, like this would have really been the season of me and Schwartz. And I don't think she would have felt, it feels bad about this, but there was that thought in my head of, if we had just this, that finale would have been around her and Schwartz's relationship, period.
Yeah, and the fact that Schwartz, who was emotional talking to his mother-in-law and saying how much their relationship means to him, the fact that he was actively hiding while his best friend was saying, among other things, which was edited out of the episode but confirmed on, I think, Kristen's pod, saying shut the fuck up to Terry. Like the fact that he heard this and was genuinely hiding. To talk about a lack of respect, I mean, Raquel and Terry are essentially strangers. It's not okay. It's unacceptable. It was extremely upsetting to watch how Raquel was treating Terry. Let's not forget Tom, how Tom was treating Terry. And Lord knows he has known Katie's mom for much, much longer than Raquel. So I don't know if Raquel was parroting Tom or doing as she thought he would, doing what she thought he wanted or maybe told her, or just genuinely feels that way. It doesn't take away from the impact of the behavior. But Schwartz, I mean, this is his literal mother-in-law. He's crying and upset about why Katie doesn't want to be his friend anymore. Look at how Katie's ex-husband, soon to be, is treating her mom. Like, look at what the level of inaction, for whatever reason, look at the effect of that. Like, we've heard that apparently Katie's brother stood up a couple times and was defending Terry. Of course, his mother, which wasn't included in the episode. We heard from someone who was there that Tom told her to go fuck herself. That wasn't included in the episode. But Schwartz being silent was.
Well, I mean, I wonder if also we will see that footage in the Never Before Seen episode at the very end, which is just like, what a kick in the ass to get angry all over again. Like, that's the thing, is that this show is really dealing in anger. And I mean, it's like dealing it out to us. And then we get angry. Like even that clip last night, they've done this like kind of weirdly magnificent job of just doling out anger every day and keeping us on the line and on the hook. Like we've never not stepped away from this and go, oh, okay, I'm kind of tired of this. They've managed to really keep this going at this magnificent pace. that truly haven't lost us. And I thought at this point they would have lost us. And so that's a hats off to the production and Bravo and just the fans. They've really kept this like you said, every morsel is we just sit there and eat it up. Now at your show on Thursday, the 18th with Dylan Hafer, will you be breaking down each one of these moments that we see on the finale? Or are you going to do a Q&A? Like, what is going to be the lineup here? I mean, are you going to do any cover songs like Tom Sandoval and the Most Extras? I would love to hear Dylan do some kind of Somebody to Love like Freddie Mercury, like Tom does. Are you kidding me?
You know, Dylan and I did both go to school for musical theater performance. He at Tulane.
Are you telling us right here you will be doing a musical performance? You better be doing a musical performance.
Absolutely not be happening, but maybe I can. No, I can't ask him to do that. But maybe at a different time, who's to say? But yeah, we're going to get into all of this. And the opportunity that Andy's Girls provides is that since the show's inception, and it's been kicking for about, I don't know, over 400 episodes at this point, is the focus on the behavior that we're watching on screen and our interpretation of it based on our own experiences. And it's that kind of combination and mixture, the ways I'm always so curious for the sort of spectrum of opinions that I get about any given scene. And I do this thing on the AG Patreon called Satchels of Gold, named in honor of Her Holiness Kelly Cloran Ben Simone, which are thoughts and feels that you're silent, that listeners have sent in, long form thoughts about like, oh my God, when it comes to Tree v. Meliss, like here's the thing that is really pissing me off, or I haven't heard this perspective. And I think for Dylan and I, there's a really great opportunity potentially to do a Q&A, which I would love to do, but also to just really sit in whatever our emotions are coming out of the finale and trying to figure out where that comes from, like really unpacking, I think, the Bravoholic rage, but also we're going to get a lot of information tomorrow. So to react to it, at this live show the day after, it's going to be nuts. It's going to be nuts. I was very upset at the last episode. So we'll see.
It would be great if you guys set up one of those break stuff rooms that they have in reality shows where you guys are just like have like an axe and you're just like, and everybody's collectively screaming like they're in Midsummer, and everybody's like, and the whole group is just screaming and crying and laughing. And that's a scene, y'all. That's what we create, a scene. But it is one of those things where it's like, it is one of those, this especially, it's like you want to share with others. You want, like, that's where I kind of understood what you were talking about with the Tom Sandoval shows. You want to be around people that are like, are we experiencing this at the same, we're experiencing this at the same time. This is very unique. It's like Haley's Comet. We're not going to see this potentially for a long time again. Like we potentially, it's only once in a million years, you're potentially going to see something like we got this season. And that's also, and I'd say this, like that Beverly Hills season that I loved a couple of seasons ago, it's just that be prepared also for the drop off. Be prepared when it doesn't hit all of those pleasure buttons that we're used to. And, we're so addicted to this stuff. How are we going to kick this habit in 5 weeks? How are we going to detox ourselves? Because, listen, while we're talking about this, there's a new RHONY reboot that we got a preview for yesterday. Mm-hmm. We found out RHONY Legacy turned into Ultimate Girls Trip Season 5. I mean, there is a Jersey finale happening. There's OC coming up. We have so much Bravo right now, and we are so myopically focused on this. And Sarah, I mean, how are you going to do this? How are we going to do this? There's other things to talk about.
Well, I think we're going to handle it as all true Bravoholics do, by multitasking. Because even when the episodes are done, even after Secrets Revealed, there's going to be content and discussion because cameras could have potentially gone back up at that point. Like, there's always going to be something happening. This is the world of Bravo and the universe of Housewives, and the reason that, you and I in many ways podcast and kind of continue the conversation off TV in our own worlds, because there's always something to discuss. And I also think there's always a connective thread. And I think you and I both appreciate, as I'm sure your listeners do, as AGs do, that you don't have to look at this stuff as a guilty pleasure. Like, remove the guilt from it. We all find value in different ways of pure enjoyment or speculation, or feeling like we have the power in criticizing someone else's story seen on screen or connecting with it, whatever it is. there is a lot of value in those conversations. And to see the New York Times talk about the Scandoval, to see CNN coverage, it's just kind of confirmation of that. Like, we don't have to keep convincing outsiders that what we're doing is good.
That's one of the overall themes of my show is like, be proud in these things that other people have made fun of you for. I've been made fun of for liking these shows since I've liked these shows. And I'm like, no, you got to understand. You got to understand why this is so good. So it's so nice to have people catching up to it. And you still have the naysayers, sure. And you still have the people within our faction of Bravo lovers of like, I'm over it, I'm done. Everybody can feel their own way, like you just said about Tom Sandoval's shows. But what a great time to be a Bravo fan. What a great time to be alive. But looking down the pike, we have so much to look forward to. We have to, kind of remove the Vanderpump of it all and start thinking about like, listen, those New York ladies are coming back. We got a new York. Did you watch the trailer for the new New York ladies?
I did. I watched it a couple times. I watched it again
What'd
tonight.
You think?
I had a different experience watching it tonight than I did when it came out, which when it came out, I just had like Dorinda in my head. I had Jill in my head. I had sort of everybody from New York OG in my head, continuing to, I would say, like, the most recent season-ish. And so watching that, I was like, okay, this is just a totally different universe. It has nothing to do with the New York that I've loved for so many years. That's okay. But except that the first couple times I watched it, I was like, that is not okay. And now the most recent time I watched it, I was like, okay, that's okay. We'll give it a chance. And they're dangling Ultimate Girls Trip, Scary Island, Legacy, whatever, longest title on earth, so that we feel like we're getting both. And that's what we wanted. We wanted to make sure we still had the experience with the ladies that we fell in love with.
But that's what, a tribute to that show is that show is so damn good. It created all of these reality show superstars with those ladies. But at a certain point, and I feel this sometimes about Jersey with Teresa, is that you got to cut and run at a certain point because the overall health of the show, the show is the thing. It can't be, all of these superstars that think they're above the show. We've got RHONY, there's going to be always lady stories that I think you're going to stumble upon that are going to be fascinating to watch, but it feels weird. It's like one of those, it's like, it just feels weird. But I'm going to actually reserve judgment because I don't want to just shit on a trailer because I've done that before and I've been wrong. Like, also it takes time to actually dig your teeth into something. Like people didn't even really get into RHONY like for like the hardcore love until like season 3. Like things take time to build.
But also, and that's all fine and good, and I totally respect it, but also just like normalize changing your mind based on new information. You might hate the trailer and love the show, and that's okay too. You might love the trailer and love the show, and that's great. You might hate the trailer and hate the show. You might like the show and then whatever else other combination I didn't say I was not a major.
I was like, how many combinations are you gonna get?
Whatever the friggin' thing is, like, however that works. Like this is
you may be in a coma and not be able to watch the show, but you love the preview before the coma.
Entirely possible. But that is also a part of this. Is like it's okay to like have a big swing and maybe you decide at a later point that you missed and maybe you don't. Like that's a part of it too, is to be like, you know what, I don't really like this trailer, but I have hope, or maybe I love this trailer, but I don't know how I feel. That's okay.
RHONY, a new cast on RHONY has such an uphill battle already because we love the old RHONY so much up until a certain point where we didn't start loving it as much. So it has this uphill battle to like kind of overcome already. So it is nice to finally just see some movement, like, okay, at least we're getting movement. Just a real quick dance around other Bravo things. You had mentioned Kim and Kroy, who of course some of their story, especially Kim's, was on Real Housewives of Atlanta. Would you want Kim to join Atlanta again next season? I know we get her for at least an episode this season of the current season.
I just don't know if that's necessary because I think Kim is so divisive that I don't know that we need to have that kind of like separation in the cast because she brings up a lot of feelings and she's had a very specific history with several of the cast members. Like, I don't know that would be a benefit to Sheree, for example, who might feel like she has to align with Kim as she did before. Like, I don't know. And Kenya and Kim obviously don't get along. I don't know what Kim would bring to the table, but who knows?
But isn't that the same thing we've been talking about with Jax? Like, Jax has a very specific relationship with certain people in this
yeah,
cast.
Which is the way that a person could argue that this is going to keep the story from moving forward. Like, if you make that comparison, which I don't totally see, but I get it.
We're making it. It's made.
We're making it. It's made. That's just the world. I don't know I don't know how that would help us versus other former cast members who I would be interested in seeing return. Like, I would be very, very down to see Porsha return, and I thought that lovely little moment in time when Porsha and Kenya were really friendly was beautiful, and I would like to see that come back. I don't know how long it will exist, but that to me is more interesting than Kim.
Did you see that Porsha's on that new reality competition series
Mars
Life on Mars with Tom Schwartz?
I thought that was a joke. Like,
no, it's on Fox. Insane. It's on Fox. And they're all like they're shooting in Australia where they're simulating the red planet Mars, and they compete for who's going to be the person that lives.
Dumb.
It's
I'm going to watch it 80 times. It's going to be so stupid. But I'm going to watch it.
And Porsha, Porsha's going to be like, What'd you do to that girl, Katie? And Schwartz is like, I don't know, man. I miss my family, Porsha. You've got to understand. It's like I wonder how much they're going to be able to talk about their collective other jobs on Mars, because that's all I'm going to be tuning in for. Is like, sure. And by the way, another time of like, shouldn't you guys be at the bar that you started, the restaurant that you like? You're not good multitaskers that Sarah brought up earlier. Sandoval couldn't even successfully cheat. How the fuck is he running this bar? Like, how the fuck is any of this happening over Schwartz and Sandy's?
Okay, can we circle back to that for a second? Because I did start the Heather and Jax interview, but I didn't have a chance to like get super deep into it. But Jax was talking about like, oh, I went to the bar at Schwartz and Sandy's on Thursday, 5 people there. I spoke to the owner who hates Sandoval now, which I was like, ooh, I don't
You spoke to Tom Schwartz?
No, he's on Greg or whatever. Like,
Greg,
I spoke to X person XYZ, and they hate Sandoval and they want to buy him out. And I'm thinking like, A, did those conversations actually happen? B, what happened in that? How much of this are we putting upon what that person said? And C, if they did actually say that, did they know that they were really talking to Jax?
He was there. I know it exactly the night he was there with Tom Schwartz. So also I love in Jax's story. Yes. And also Joe was there. Schwartz's root. Yes. No. But here's the deal. This is what cracks me up. Is that in Jax's stories, he's always the person that everybody reveals their deepest, darkest secrets to. Yes. He's like, listen, man, I was just getting a beer and they were like, hey, partner, I'm about to try to buy Schwartz and Sandoval out. Who are you, by the way? Well, I'm Jason Taylor. Well, good to meet you, Jason. Let me see some other, like everybody's revealing secrets, and he is really good buddies with Schwartz. Does Schwartz want him going around saying that Schwartz and Sandy's is in dire, like they're about to close? Are we about to get a season 11 where it's like, save Schwartz and Sandy's, please save Schwartz and Sandy's? Is that the storyline we're going to get? Is that Schwartz and Sandy's is on the verge of closing and we need to save it? Like, why reveal all of this information if you're even close with one of them and we know he's close with Schwartz?
I mean, why not? I think is the answer to that. I think that's the answer to a lot of at least Schwartz's reactions or non-reactions. I don't know that we could ever make heads or tails of it because it just, I don't know that would be possible to do. But what do you think is going to happen? Like to go off of what Jax said and what I think someone else said, and another VPR cast member said, like, there might be a crowd there, but they're not necessarily buying drinks. They're there to be a part of the
They're at the zoo.
Experience.
They need to start charging at the door to just come in and look around.
Because
dumb. that is kind of the thing. And they, buy your little merch and lean into it. Have a Schwartzy's mom shirt, have a, start like leaning into that shit. But as we start winding down here, do you have 10 more minutes? Are you good?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I didn't know. I know you're crazy. Because by the way, once again, guys, Thursday night, if you live in New York or the surrounding cities, you got to go to this show. If I was in New York, I would for sure be there, because it is just one of those things. You want to drink with these people. You want to talk with these people. Sarah's going to be doing a big song, as she told us earlier. So we want to hear that. There might be surprise guests. You just never know. It's going to be a scene. And also just Dylan and Sarah are just really funny, smart people. And you always want to support that. So back to this, where do you see season 11 is if we do have Jax cameos? We don't know if we've gotten word on the Doute cameos, but Doute, of course, we know she said on her podcast last week that she still has it out for DJ James Kennedy. Now, That would be something I would be, because James Kennedy's on the uprise. All the fans love him again, even though he's exhibited very problematic behavior. Even though by the way, I will say he is funny as hell.
He's
but
so funny.
If you go back and watch all of those seasons, so you would have a Doute in there kind of already of like, Sandoval's down. Now it's time to DJ James Kennedy. Would you want that storyline? Where do you see this going? And who would film with Raquel?
I mean, listen, that reunion trailer was so good. And the poo-poo head of it all, like worm with what was it? Worm with a
mustache. You're a worm with a mustache.
It was those two moments, and then Andy saying my cards. That was like iconic television to me. I couldn't get enough of it. I cannot stop thinking about Andy just being like, my cards. Like do you
think Andy then put his own cards back in order? Do you think an assistant comes out and puts the cards in order?
I hope we see what they did about those cards as they drop to the ground. Because that's a Secrets Revealed episode that I would want to watch. Like, who put the cards back in order and didn't even matter.
We're laughing, but I'm at that stage of Sandoval where I want I want to know what they're eating in the morning. I want to know.
It's never going to end.
Andy, I know you don't listen, but if you did, I would love if you start bringing Ben to these reunions, just kind of training Ben for the future to like pass down the business. If like Ben started being backstage of like, you see what I did here, Ben? I want you to pay attention. I want you to see how I try to like stroke the ego of Sandoval to reveal more information and then say, okay, moving on. Charlotte from Kentucky says, what do you think season 11 storylines will be?
I don't know. I assume that everyone is going to be back. I genuinely do assume that Raquel is going to be back based on no information. So I think that's going to be I think that's going to be a part of it. But it's something that, again, one of the cast members said on a pod, I think it was Sheena, because we're just listening to everything 24/7 at this point. But like Lisa Vanderpump is going to need to host every party
at her place
from here forward, because no one else, seemingly aside from Schwartz, and who even knows what's happening there. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But like, who's going to invite Raquel to a group event? Who's going to invite Sandoval? And maybe Schwartz. Like, Lisa's the only one who could potentially do it. So maybe Lisa's going to have a much more
connector. I'm a connector. I need you kids to grow up. We've got a show to do. I mean, who do you think out of all of those women would be the first one to break in shooting the scene with Raquel? Because Ariana lays it down on the line this episode that we're seeing tonight, that it's fine if you talk with them, but I don't want to be talking to you if you do.
Oh, does she say that? Like, should she break? I mean, this is all breaking the fourth wall, but does she literally say?
If that makes the cut, but yeah, that was said.
Because I heard it was said, but I didn't know that it was filmed. I thought that was just like a thing behind the scenes.
I mean, I heard it was. Yeah, I heard it was.
I believe it either way. Of course. I mean, it like makes complete sense. And going off of how Lala responded to, like, I guess it was Schwartz being friendly still with Rand or whoever it was. I mean, yeah, I think it's going to be, I don't think that any of the women on the cast surely have any interest in communicating with Sandoval or Raquel again, but also there's a show to do. So how do you deal with it?
That's what I'm saying.
And also communicating could be communicating anger and rage. It wouldn't be the first time that's occurred.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I think they're going to actually like, they're going to logisticize it. They're going to tell themselves that of like, okay, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to be very angry and shout this person down. And that's still not what Ariana said. So it's going to be very interesting, because then I could see that person then having to fight with Ariana, because Ariana's going to be like, I told you no. Also, will Tom say Tom? I've seen most recently Tom having separate meetings with Lisa and Ken, and who knows, like, they're of course trying to, like, I would imagine, keep those lines of communication open. And at the end of the day, I don't really know how much Lisa truly cares about the psychology of these kids. Like, because at a certain point, you're like, damn, this is dark. But at the same time, it is making Lisa money. And Lisa has never been hotter in terms of people wanting to watch this show. So where do you draw the line as a person and as a producer?
Well, obviously she has an investment in the show, but she does genuinely care about these people. And you can see that in past episodes and past seasons. So I think that her perspective is probably more closely connected to, like, yes, I have professional expertise, but also how can you get through this as a human person? Because she knew these people before Vanderpump Rules. I mean, and I think she might feel from the perspective of like being the creator of the show, responsible for making sure that they can survive it. And so who knows what she's talking to them about? Because of course, you know, they're only 5% business owners in TomTom, but it does have their name on the door. The benefit for Lisa is that when I think TomTom, I think the name TomTom, but I do genuinely think Lisa Vanderpump versus Schwartz and Sandy's, where it's like really the Toms at every level. So I don't know that there's going to be any kind of shift at TomTom, but who knows? I mean, I don't know.
It would be amazing if they changed it to like they changed it to poo poo heads. Like, TomTom, like poop. We're going to poo poo heads tonight. Like I would do that. I would love a poo poo. They should change the name like every month at TomTom right now until it's in working order. Until I mean, I'm curious though. Also in terms of you know, we say Raquel, what woman, but like what potential storyline would you imagine in your head that Raquel, like you know, if Tom is still with Raquel, then that's one thing. But what if Tom is like, dude, I had no clue it was going to be this intense. Like Tom backs out of this relationship. What, I mean, we have that question at the reunion of like, Andy's like, are you in love right now? And they don't give us the answer. Yeah. What happens if Tom has broken off with Raquel? What possibly would be her storyline? If you were the producer, what would you try to push for Raquel's storyline?
I don't know, because the hope I'm assuming for Vanderpump Rules, because it's built around a group of people in a universe, is like, how do you even communicate story about Raquel if there's no one to engage in it? And I think the difficulty for Raquel is not only her behavior with, you know, Katie's mom and the weirdness with Schwartz and obviously Tom and obviously Ariana, the things she said to Ariana that were incredibly inappropriate and manipulative and horrifying, but also, I mean, her behavior at the finale, like smiling to Tom and being like, well, it didn't work out in the way we thought it was going to, but here we are. Like that could really compound a lot of anger that people feel. And I don't know how you build on that. And I sort of, to me, doesn't even matter, which is, you know, a big sort of, if they're together.
I mean, are they going to move in with each other? Is there going to be a scene where Raquel's like, look at all the pins and batteries I got you? Like, I mean, what are we going to have the scenes of like them even as a couple? I was trying to imagine, like, you know, is it going to be like his romantic ideas of taking mushrooms at sunrise and going hang glide? Are we going to see a wish fulfillment season of them going around doing adventures as a couple? Like that's the thing but what a fun job for the production right now. Cause I was trying to explain to the audience, and you know, this is that producers produce the show, but it's also this like really, really interesting game of hand holding where they have to talk people into like, no, I think it's really good if you did reveal that. Oh, I think you should reveal it. I think that actually would be, I think the audience would like, it's like this kind of hand holding of, you know, even to get that reunion to happen. So many conversations had to happen with Raquel and Tom to convince them that they were going to be in an environment where they could tell a story.
Well, also the reunion makes me feel a little odd because we now know that like the legal documents that Raquel gave to Scheana are not legally binding. It was more of a prop. So some of that stuff, like it's so
explain that to people. I kind of brought that up on Friday's episode, but I didn't, you know, it's like that. Obviously the documents given to Scheana where she cries are the dismissal of the TRO, which is not true.
Right. Which is not possible apparently for the kind of TRO that was filed. It's like insignificant. And I would assume that at least Raquel's lawyer, if not Raquel, had an understanding that some aspect of those literal pieces of paper were for show. But Scheana's not going to know that. She knows that now because she's told us this. And because
Scheana had to go. Scheana still had to show up to that court date. She had to show up to the court date where they did say they were dismissing it.
Right, because they had said in advance that they were dismissing, and Scheana did not believe them for understandable reasons and said, I'm showing up no matter what. Because I don't trust that they're not going to show up. Like, who knows what's going to go down?
I mean, obviously we'll probably potentially get a storyline like that next season. I mean, listen, we could potentially get a Scheana pregnancy storyline again. We could get, if Brittany comes on. I mean, Lala was talking about, Lala was talking about getting artificially inseminated. And I mean, we could get another we could get a Lala pregnancy season. I mean, it's really all of these kind of configurations. It makes it, I mean, God, I would just love to talk to production because it's got to be a horrifying job, but when you look back, I would love to see how they put this season together. because they made a really solid flipping season of Vanderpump Rules even before Scandoval. And the way they were able to hop on this and ride that wave is just, to me, just like hats off.
I know that this is an enormous undertaking, which is, I assume, why it hasn't happened since. But the Real Housewives of Orange County special episode, I think it was for their, like, I don't even know what number episode it was.
The 100th episode. The
100th episode,
right?
Where they did a special talking to existing and former housewives and production about how Real Housewives of Orange County came to be, was so interesting. And if there was
Sarah,
ever a time to do it, it would be for the Scandoval.
I'm about to blow your mind, but it's going to be frustrating because you're not going to be able to find it. They did the similar thing for Vanderpump Rules about the first season. So there is an hour-long episode of Vanderpump Rules. I've tried to track this down because I've watched it a handful of times over the years. I think it was like they added it into one of the episodes. It was around season 7, I think. But they talk about that first season and it had all the production talking about it. It started off with Andy saying how it was pitched, and they showed that diagram that we've all seen, like, this person dated this person broke up with this person. They show that. And then they also were talking about the production. I remember this Jeremiah, who was just, I think he was an editor at the time. He's now an executive producer. He was talking about how they all bought Jax completely. Like, he said, no, I did not cheat on Stassi. That is not true. And they all bought him. So when he came in with the flowers and told Stassi that he had been like, I'm so sorry I did it, they were all shocked. That's how good Jax is. Jax gets you in there. He knows his way around a lie, and he even convinced all of production. That's why I always crack up when people are saying production knew. It's like, guys, remember that most people don't think they're being lied to, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know what that says about Jax upon returning. I just think we have so much chaos right now, but it's also just so fascinating. And it has inspired. I've been pushing up against this. I really, really didn't want to rewatch VPR because there's just so much going on right now that I was concerned that if I started, because I love, obviously, classic VPR is classic for a reason. And I was so nervous that if I started, I wouldn't be able to stop. And that is what's taking place. Like, I just randomly started watching a random episode of season 6. And now it's just, I just can't get out of it.
They rerun it all the time now, which is amazing. Yeah. So you do, like, I've seen all these episodes multiple times, but yeah, there was that piece of me of like, oh, should I just do Patreon back seasons of Vanderpump and just do all the voices and stuff? Cause it's so fun. Like, I don't even take it, you know, like, just so fun from a silly aspect. But finally though, just talk about the Vanderpump economy. We had the trailer yesterday for the Randall scandal, Randall Emmett story that came out, broke on the LA Times. Lala, I believe, is a participant. You got Heather McDonald. You got a lot of people involved in that. Will you be watching that story? Because I think Randall Emmett kind of dodged a bullet this season, even though he's not on it. I thought he was going to be brought up way more because of the first episode of the season. They talk about the LA Times article.
Yeah, the interesting thing is Lala has talked about her surprise at how much it hasn't been a part of the finished episodes, because she said that she actually talked a lot about it on camera. So I don't know if there was
she said that?
Yeah, on something. Again, I've listened to so many of their podcasts and their content that it's like, I'm so deep in this at this point that I am a little bit excited for a little bit of a break. But yeah, I don't know that was because of some potential troubleshooting in advance of legal concern of what's going to happen if she's sharing specifics, because obviously he's just in a world of hurt right now from a PR perspective, let alone possible legal repercussions. So am I going to watch it? What
scares me though is that, but it scares me we don't hear a lot from Randall. Like, you know, it's like, you know, like, you know, it's like that, like, I want to bring it out into the light more. I want people to be more aware of this.
Do we? He's he's garbage.
I want his story to be told. People don't realize the shit that he was involved in. People they don't have a long memory. They have a short memory. This needs to be reminded. And by the way, because he's still producing movies, you guys, he's still producing movies. In fact, he owes Jax Taylor $75,000, Jax said, if we can believe that. But I think, you know, he's still out there working and things like that. And you would just hope from the behavior that he's exhibited, and we've been told, and it's been investigative reporting on, I think that's an important story to continue down that path, so this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, his story will certainly be told, including his life prior to Lala and VPR. He's just likely not to be the one telling it. He's not a reliable narrator.
Oh yeah, no, I meant,
you know, a lot of
he's not out there like trying to like PR. I mean, like whatever he's doing is behind the scenes, and that scares me. Like who knows? Maybe, he had told, maybe there was legal action and that's why all the shit Lala said never made it to air. Who knows? That's why I want this to come out and for people to be reminded of what the actual issue was with him, because I think people forget.
Yeah, I think the difficulty for him is that seemingly the financial stuff is a true house of cards. So I don't know how much money he has in which to really invest in even fighting back in his head. Like, I don't think he has capacity to pay many of his bills. So I don't know where that would
he's
come
scrappy,
from,
dude. I completely have a different.
Oh, really? Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting. He's definitely scrappy, but I just think for him, silence is priceless.
Siri, take off. Stop, Siri. Siri, stop talking. Wait, Siri, stop. Siri, go away.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
I must have said the SIRI word.
Oh my
God. And then
God,
my Siri turned on my computer and I couldn't hear you. And then I was like, did Randall do this?
He does have money after all. He bought Apple. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Randall. I don't know what direction chapter they'll go down, if any, with him.
You're less than 48 hours from your live show happening once again this Thursday, the 18th at 7 p.m. You can also live stream this. All that information will be in the description of the show, and I'll put it up on Instagram today as well, folks, so you guys can see it in the stories. Please go. I think this will be a blast. And any final words on why we should be there? Why should we be there, Sarah?
Well, I think similar sort of in energy to BravoCon, there is a little bit of a magic in the air when Bravoholics get together. And when we really, really do sort of unpack all of this and react to it and deep dive. And Dylan is an old pal on the pod. We've done so many collabs together, and I just really, really enjoy talking to him and getting his perspective, which is always really funny and really nuanced. And I just think there's no better time, obviously, quite literally, than Thursday night to have a Pumptini. Come alone, come with friends. If you're in the New York City area, it will be at the Green Room 42 at 7 p.m., but also you can live stream it. And if you're not able to watch it live that night, you can watch it on demand the next day. So I'm really excited. $20 tickets, get to support some content creators, so we can continue doing this stuff. Love it. It's a
no-brainer. So send it to Daryl, send it to Sarah, and send it to send it to Dylan. You got to go out there and enjoy. I know I would be there if I was in New York. But thank you for another fabulous conversation, Sarah. It's always so great and so fun. So I really appreciate you taking the time with all of us today.
Oh my God, I love coming on. Are you kidding? I love our conversations, and you always bring such a unique perspective. So thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Okay, are we done with this bullshit yet? Oh shit. Okay. Bye.